Well, nothing like the start of right. So you're okay. I think it's probably part two. In which case, Mark, welcome to part two. Mark, the previous in the introduction, you mentioned that certain procedures that you went through, or the people that you were involved with were going through or did. And this is one of the key factors in the whole alien disclosure situation because James Casbolt, Sophia, Max Spears, a lot of the key people who've been in these bases, and a lot of the people going right back to bases one way back in 1994, they were talking about reptilians in the underground bases here in the UK, or precisely southern England. And the reptilians are associated with reptilian type ETs. But there's a phrase which keeps on being used, and that's the Alpha Draconis. Now, Bob Osborne done a whack of research down in Zennor, and our good old friend Alistair Crowley, way back in I think the mid-20s, he was there with another gentleman called Jack Parsons, and Jack Parsons' initials are JP,
Yeah.
and the NASA Deep Space Labs are called JPL after Jack Parsons.
Yeah.
So we have a direct connection with NASA,
Yeah.
Deep Space, and Jack Parsons. And in Zennor, they were doing rituals which would bring in the Alpha Draconis. Okay?
Yeah.
So we have a direct connection between Alistair Crowley, who also brought this with Madame Blavatsky and all that lot, brought in this sort of strange-looking being called, I think, Nan. Was it Nan?
I can't remember, but
Well,
it
an
wasn't far
entity
off.
which has got a striking resemblance to a grey. Now, Elena
Oh,
Danan is saying
yeah.
that the forerunner of an invasion, the Alpha Draconis, or a collective name, is the Shikar that she uses. That's
Right.
Sikar. That's, I think, C-I, anyway. It's got a C-I at the start, so it's Shikar. That involves an awful lot of different types of greys,
Yeah.
reptilians, the more sort of crocodile type, which are not the alpha, but I think there's two other different types there.
I've seen a
They
card like
can
that.
walk around, upright and with a hood on, could be walking down the street. Or just,
Yeah.
they could get away with doing that. So the bottom line is that James Casbolt, which was part of the British Super Soldier program, is talking about Alpha Draconis in underground tunnels here in England.
Yeah.
And an awful lot of other people have been talking about that. But the key to this is a full-scale invasion and takeover of our planet by the Alpha Draconis in the Sixty-Car Wars.
Right.
And the good news is that Elena Danan is saying, well, it's all happy slappy. They've been kicked off the planet and everything's okay.
Yeah.
So the disclosure movement is expecting the CIA or the government to say, oh, there's aliens out there and we're going to see if we can make contact. Well, they've been dealing with them for decades, hundreds of years, if not, and they're
Mm.
embedded within our culture and the elite who are running the planet. And you're
So,
nodding the head here. So I'm setting the scene here.
yeah.
So the point about this is you've got, well, the point about this is you seem to know a little bit about these rituals. So
Yeah.
why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah. Um, well, draconian magic as well. It targets the reptilian part of our brain. And again, this links us with them. So part of the rituals that we witness and do links us in with that energy, particularly Masonic rituals, um, particularly, you know, when I mentioned last time about linking up the trinity of those rituals, which to link them perfectly is sound and resonance in the acoustic building, and you align the trinity of the three, then the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. With that, it opens a doorway to all different beings, particularly reptilians, as I saw. So they need. I still don't think they can be here completely because um, the time that I witnessed with them is very short. The conditions, the frequency, everything needs to be correct for them to stay and kind of take over. So at the moment, they're in the phase of manipulating people to do that for them, which we know they've been doing that for a long time.
Now, when you say a
Um,
long time, how long are you talking about?
I think you look at all our dragon history and the reptilian history, and it goes back, thousands of years. So I think they've always been on the periphery. They've always been just outside our light frequency. And I think at the moment they are setting up conditions or terraforming conditions for them to be here longer for a period of time. But I don't think that period lasts. It's a short period of time, which then I think they instill AI, then artificial intelligence, to take over for the period at the end of the cycle until we start again. So that's
What
what
cycles and how long?
um, the cycle is basically a lifetime cycle. So it can be, some say 12,000 years and tie it into all esoteric and Mayan stuff, but I think it's a lot shorter, these cycles.
Well, we are in a twelve
Um,
and a half thousand year cycle in terms of the sun and all this, which is happening right now.
it's happening right now. We're at the end of it now. We're in the last phase of the cycle. So we converge in timelines and realities, and for a period of time, everything will become one reality. So we will share a space with all the mythical um, dragons, vampires, all the monster stuff, which we take as myth and stories. I think there'll be a period of time where we'll share that space with them until the realities separate again and go fractal again, and we become multidimensional again. But I think we're all returning to one version of ourselves at the minute, so we moving into the one. But going back to the rituals, um, you see it throughout society now. And I remember you text me the horses on Saturday and stuff, and these are the
Could you
last.
refer to those horses? It's for the point of view we're doing this on May 2024, and what horse are you referring to exactly?
Um, what I saw there is a take from Revelations. It was a closing ceremony that I saw. So the other thing they're doing is sticking to Revelations and sticking to all the allegory in there as much as they can. So we get these stories out there by no mistake, which everything's consent based anyway. So they've got to tell us what it is
Now, what do you
for
mean
them to be
by
able.
consent based? If you could explain that for those who don't understand about that.
Yeah. So any form of magic um, is basically to extract our energy and use the collective energy of the masses to manifest wherever they want. So how they do that is, first of all, they put a story out, a narrative of what's happening, like a war, for example. And then when enough people believe it, then they play out the ritual of the war and extract all the fear and energy, because they can only use low vibrational energy. They can only use fear, and they can only use war, and because that's where they are. Anything above that, which equals love, and any high frequency energy, they can't use. They actually repel it. So they got to. with the magic, they've got to tell us the whole thing that they're doing. And we believe the stories, they put it out through the media, they put it out through newspapers, they put it out on internet, they put it out on Facebook, um, they put it out in any of those outlets. And then people will share it and share it. And while they're sharing it, they build in the power. They spreading it, the power's building. And then it's like a song. You have a start, you have the middle piece, and then you have the drop off at the end. And the drop is the energy troll. That's where we give away everything. When they found a resolution for us, is where we letting our energy go, and they collecting it um, through whatever ritual or building, esoteric building, whatever form they can.
So I mean, the Beatles song "All You Need Is Love" seems to strike a chord, but weren't the
Yeah,
Beatles and groups like that used for these rituals in the first place?
they were very much into Crowley when they were the Beatles. So, and he's actually on the cover of one of the records. But I think it gets to a point where when they get invited into these societies and they learn exactly how things work, you suddenly see the change in celebrities for a start. Like, I can tell by looking at them sometimes the way they've changed their attitudes, the way they've become more confident, almost arrogant. It's like they know at some point that they can use the poor people to extract the energy and manifest anything they want if they can convince them of that.
The
It's the same
so-called
as how
A-listers.
A-listers, yeah. Most of them are in the big club. I don't think there's any that are successful if they're not part of that big club. Very,
I
very
mean,
rare.
we've heard this thing about one eye being dark and why so many of the rock singers wear dark glasses.
Yeah, that's right. It's like the left eye of Horus ritual, isn't it? So they get digged in it. It's like
What happens there exactly?
um I don't know what happens exactly with that ritual, but there's definitely some hidden. It's probably an allegory. It's probably a sacrifice and a raising, a resurrection involved with that ritual. If you
When
look at
you
it on a
say a
smaller scale,
sacrifice, explain.
well, if you look at the third degree of masonry, and that is a story about Hiram and Biff, and it's a story about he's the builder, and three ruffians come along and hit him over the head, murder him, and then there's a funeral in the ritual, and then there's a resurrection in the ritual. So it's all playing into our consciousness. But at the same time, while we are playing out that allegory, we connect in with our psyche and different parts of our psyche. So we are playing the rituals out in our own minds, basically, and extracting energy. The only problem is with masonry these days is the energy doesn't go to the people. It always gets siphoned off to the royal family. Because that's the song that's sang in the end. So the energy, the drop off at the end of a ceremony gets siphoned off towards that direction, whereas it never used to. It used to be siphoned off to the healing of the earth and anywhere that needed it. So it's all been hijacked and things have been changed around in there with the Jesuits obviously getting involved
Well,
and taking.
explain that. What do you mean, obviously? To those who wouldn't know what the relevance of the Jesuit thing is.
Yeah. So the Jesuits are an order that are responsible, I think, for inverting everything to do with our own power, with our own selves. So for the start, when they came into Masonry, they took the female energy out of it. They took the women out of it, and that depowered it straight away. Because the whole system of magic in there, the archaic system of magic, is based on masculine and feminine. But they took the biggest power out of it, so it can no
But there
longer
are
work.
there are Masonic orders which have women.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, we're not talking all and everything here. We're talking
Mm.
certain parts?
Yeah. Well, most parts of the orders. It's not many orders. We have female lodges, which are kind of more secretive than the men. But you don't hear of many orders now with male and female in. There is higher up. There's some, but on the lower down levels, they've taken that depowered that totally. So maybe there's a process there of getting to a point of if you deserve that or not. But that's what they've done anyway. The Jesuits, they came in, they swapped everything around, put them into the wrong places.
When you
So
say the wrong places, I mean I understand that the cabala that the Masons use is actually inverted. So the Masons would be going into the back of the cabala where the tunnels have set, and they meet the spiders are set when they enter that. So it's not a pleasant thing for them to go in there,
no,
which is
no,
what the Madonna ritual was on Eurovision Song Contest, I think a couple of years ago. She reversed the order of the Kabbalah when she did her dance, and that brought it round to the positive side, which inverted all the black magic that was being used during that ritual.
yeah, yeah,
That's my understanding from a person I know called Tony Stark.
yeah. And he knows a lot about ritual, doesn't he? Because he's in it. But yeah, my understanding of exactly how the ritual works, exactly what they do, is probably limited compared to Tony and stuff. I know the overview of it and exactly how ritual works against people. Um, but when you get into the technicalities, particularly the
Well,
Kabbalah,
go into
because
all
a
the
lot of orders.
details if you can.
Hmm?
You know,
Sorry?
go into the details if you can.
Okay. Okay. The with the Kabbalah, like a lot of the lower levels have got slight Kabbalah in, but there's different orders then that teach the Kabbalah, like Rosicrucian and Anglia is all Kabbalah based. And that's where the real magic happens.
What do you mean by real magic?
Well, the rituals are different. They're not just run of the mill. They actually go for, different parts of our psyche and energy. They can spill if you look at orders like Order Temple Orientis and stuff like that, it spills onto a citywide kind of ritual. Um, where they're using um, city size which as a temple. They use cities as a temple, and that's another reason why the roads and stuff are quite esoteric, and they know which energy centers to use on the streets. So I think they come to a point with that kind of magic
Could you
where they
explain that in more detail? What do you mean exactly?
the the cities. Well, when they run magic at specific times to do with certain alignments and to extract energy, they make up stories which you know of the false flags and they know when you see a lot of the bodies which are still moving under the blankets, they know that they don't have to hurt people within these rituals. They only have to make people believe that they're hurting people, and they extract the same energy from the masses. They troll the same amount of energy. So that's how they work there.
Would that be in some kind of murder movie or horror movies or Harry
Yeah,
Potter or
they
Star
use
Wars,
they use movies. They use all of it. All of it is
Star Trek?
it's all kind of ritualized, isn't it? The whole lot of it. But I say it spills onto our countries and our streets. So to them, it's not big. It's
I mean, what do you
very
mean by it
simplistic.
spills over to um, our streets? I mean, are you talking about riots or what?
No, not riots. I'm talking. They don't just use the movies. Sometimes they'll do live. ritual in the streets in terms of false flag events and stuff like that. So they could even use the media before that to warm it up to start it off. It's interesting how they've always got training days on there because in masonry they'll always have a thing called a lodge of instruction, which is to perfect a ritual before you carry it out. But these guys will have a training day on specific things in the cities, and on the same day they'll run the rituals. So it's all
That's like a bit like when we've had the 7/7 thing and a few other things. That there's been a training exercise
that's right, yeah.
going on, and then that's when the actual thing happens.
Yeah, that's just perfecting the ritual. They're getting it right from the start because it needs to be sublime when they start it.
What do you mean
Or
by sublime?
no mistakes. Everything has to be perfect because they get rewarded for perfection. So that's the same in masonry. You could be given a gold matchbox for a perfect ceremony. So the more perfect the ceremony without the mistakes, the more energy, the more power from it, and the more believable, and the more energy from the people, the more trolling they can do. So they take all the energy from the people, basically. That's how it runs.
Now,
So
what is this energy? What do you mean by this energy?
it's our intent, it's our creative energy, it's our thoughts.
It's our ability to make reality,
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
manifest it.
That's right.
So they
Because
get us to dig our own graves, for want of a better term.
that's the way they've always done it. That's the way they've always done it. They get us to manifest and create for them because it's not enough just having, a ritual in a temple to be powerful enough to get what they want, to create what they want, to create the reality what they want. So they have to take the energy from the people. They have to get us involved. You look at some of the stories they get us involved with. It means nothing to humans, but they just tell the stories anyway because they want to get us involved. If they have a reason to get involved, we're a commodity to them. So we have the power and the light to manifest this reality, which I believe is the inside of our mind anyway.
What do you mean by
I think
the inside of our minds? It's where we
it's
cognitize. We are cognitive beings.
yeah. I believe we are our reality is the outside of the inside of our mind. And I know that doesn't make much sense, but the projection of reality is the projection of our thought. It's from the back, and it's from the imagination, it's from beyond, and it's out here solidified. And it's solidified through frequency, through ritual, through the narratives, through the low, dense stories that we are told. I think it holds a solid space for us. So in effect, it might be necessary some of these dualistic stories to experience reality in this way.
I think it's called it's collapsing the quantum wave function.
Right, okay.
My understanding is that these mobile phones are being used to collapse the quantum wave function in these, thereby extracting our ability to do it in 3D down into a 2D world, dropping.
It's dropping us into another level, yeah.
Yes.
An augmented reality. And that's what it's heading because during these times, I think that the door opens for us and we have the choice to leave with the knowledge that we've got. We can ascend or shift into another timeline that suits us better, or for souls that want to go a level deeper, they want to be brave. This tech is drawing us into it, and I think we'll come to a point where there will be AI bodies, and they will put our souls into AI bodies for that period of time that everything recycles.
Well,
The
this is
soul system.
BT, Project Soul Catcher. late 1990s, extracting
Yeah,
us into computer systems,
that's
injecting
right.
us with little nanobots which would record all our lifetime, and then
Yeah,
that data would be put into a computer, and then you would live on in some, so your children could see, oh, what did daddy see, or what did granddaddy see. That's
yeah.
British Telecom, late 1990s, and it's called Project Soulcatcher. So when
Wow.
Dr. Robert
I
Duncan
never saw that.
came up
Yeah,
with the, this is late night BBC Two when Open University was on the BBC, at late in midnight or 1 in the morning.
yeah,
They were talking about all this stuff.
yeah. And when they talk about it, they put the ideas in our heads, they put the framework in our heads, and we can help create that reality for them because it's already there. So
I mean, the
I
movie
think it's
They
a good
Live sort of seems to have some kind of a connection. Was that a whistleblow or
George Orwell, yeah.
there's Brave New World and there's 1984? George Orwell wasn't warning us; he was actually getting us to manifest it in the first
Yeah,
place.
exactly. And that's how they do it. It's the same with UFOs, isn't it? There was a number of UFO television series on first before people started seeing the discs in the sky everywhere, and I think it's to do that the framework was put into our minds, and I think timeline, the length of time for them is not a lot. They'll start something maybe 40 or 50 years ago, and they're very patient, or time doesn't run the same for them, um, in getting us to manifest and put the framework into our minds in the end.
I mean, this is
So I
key to
think,
what's called the split beam experiment, where you perceive something which isn't in it's neither a wave or a particle, but the
mm,
observer effect changes events.
yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, and that's pretty much where the war is now. Is you've got tons of people wakening, learning truth, and they're trying to release more stories of fear to try and win our minds at the minute. So it's a war for our mind, this war, a big war for our mind,
Well,
as you
they
know.
use that term hearts and minds.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
yeah,
very conscious of that by when we do bases is one thing becoming aware of what their plans are, but the idea is not to fall into the trap of believing it.
that's right. Yeah,
If you see what I mean,
yeah.
that's very there's a
But
fine line there.
and that's it. That's the one weapon they have in it is getting us to believe because all belief systems are conscious traps. So we need the path to back to ourselves in a sense, and back to our own, psyche and into our hearts, back into our own hearts, and back to collect connection of source. But along the way to get there, there may be information which will act and keep us there for a period of time and run the clock down for us. And this
Now,
information
what
could
do you
be
mean by
pointless.
run the clock down for us?
Well, distract us, like some religion. It can distract us. We can get into religion's huge in it, then we can get into a lot of learning with religion, spend a lot of time there. If we had good minds, we'd use it as a stepping stone and step ourselves out. But a lot of people get stuck there, and they preach it, and the whole framework comes from that religious foundation. Then, where they're not really getting in touch with themselves, or not really knowing themselves, which it says in religion anyway in the Bible to know thyself. They just quote in words that they've read and uh, inflicting it onto people, basically. So,
Are you talking about people who thump Bibles?
some Bibles. Well, I can't criticize all of them. I think there's different levels of awareness with the Bible. Again, I don't think the stories in the Bible are literal. I think they're astrological, and I think they are stories about our anatomy and the astrological sense there. So um, I think when they're looking at it from one level, I think they're missing out on a lot there.
But I mean, what happens when these rituals are happening with well, all these types of I mean, these places, the temples. You've got Greek
Mm.
temples, you've got Roman temples, you've got the temples of the Muslim religion, and they're a different shape. They're six-sided, and you've got the so-called Christio religions, which are five-sided geometry, and some of them actually mix it. I mean, these are some people have called those buildings and structures psychotronic generators. They
Mm.
generate some kind of psychotronic energy.
Well, I think a lot of the religion has been, and the buildings involved as well, have been changed so that it's not feeding the people's souls, it's feeding the deity or the entity that is controlling the religion. So in a lot of cases, I think that when they think they are praying or, excuse me, worshiping God, I actually think it's the other way around. I actually think they are worshiping and praying to Satan, and um, I think a lot of the religions are,
Well, the Baphomet thing,
yeah,
so-called satanic, the Baphomet entity. I
yeah,
mean, what does that mean? I mean, what does that mean in terms of this so-called Satan thing and churches and stuff like that?
yeah. Um, Baphomet is something that's within certain orders in Freemasonry. I've not seen him in Christianity, unless I'm wrong. But there's certain orders of Freemasonry that use the Baphomet, and that's kind of a as above, so below kind of being.
Now, what does this
Uh,
sort of as above, so below thing? What does that mean?
Um, so basically, it means that we are the reflection of the universe. That everything that happens within us is projected into the sky. So what happens here is happening in the cosmos. So everything is connected. The seven heavenly bodies of the chakra system. We are from the stars. Um, as above, so below is just is the mirror term of who we are and the power we have.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of like it's used as being the truth and kind of a realization for us to learn and understand that. Um,
So are you being allowed to do this, thereby sort of inducing this information to the wider public for a
what's that now?
positive purpose or what?
Of
Well,
sorry.
I mean, being able to talk about these rituals and things.
Hmm. Am I being
What's
allowed?
what's the purpose? I mean, have you been sort of say, look, we better let get this bit out, or this the other bit out, or whatever.
No, no. Basically, I think ritual and any forms of magic are losing their power. And the reason I think that they're losing their power is because the consciousness of humans and souls is raising, and at some point we won't need a hacking system. I see magic as a hacking system. I see ritual as a hacking system, and it's a way of hacking energy and doing a quick, getting a quick feed or a quick manifestation or quick creation. I think where it's heading now is our awareness and frequency is raising and connecting with a higher vibration. In that sense, then the work to do is shadow work. Um, Shadow work is diving into our traumas and our deepest things that's happened in our lives and our fears and everything, and releasing these traumas one by one. As we release these traumas, we are connecting from the heart directly to source energy with nothing attached to it. No attachments, so no conscious traps. So I think the process we're going through is a cleansing process, and we are starting to um, do away with them. So for me, then, where I watch ritual stuff being played out in the cities, I still watch ritual, and for me, um, obviously a lot of people are still doing it, but personally think it's depowering and beginning to phase out for a period of time. I think magic is very powerful when our frequency is a lot lower, and then the hacking is needed then if you want something quick. That
I mean, a lot
magic.
of these things, like, are you saying that it's like taking some kind of drug of some kind? You know, adrenochrome or whatever. I mean, what's all that about?
Well, that's another thing as well. That's they get hallucinogenic experiences of adrenochrome, very very powerful, and because of the blood involved, the adrenalized blood, they get in to see entities and speak to spirits very quickly. Um, Again, I think that's an addiction for them. I don't think they're in control of their natural ability to do that. Um,
I mean, that
but
where does this adrenochrome come from? This is where all those terrible things about children and human
it's
beings.
mostly traumatized children's blood in it. That's where they get it. So, and that's to do with, the reason they target children is because the blood will be more pure. There'll be no three-dimensional awareness placed on the children yet, particularly pubescent. The blood will be pure and be far more powerful. Um,
What makes it more powerful? Is it life force because it's young?
it's a life force, and it's the way they traumatize them also, which is,
And that's got a ritual.
they'll be ritualized, they'll be simply fear, but yeah, they'll be ritualized. They'll, there's a number of their gods involved in that, and you can look at Molech, the owl. The phoenix is connected to it, and then anything like that, like the owl or the phoenix, or it becomes a talisman. So they can try and offset karma by using a third part or a triad to distance it away from themselves. Any ritual has hurt somebody, so they're not going to get the karma back.
Now, what's
So
this about karma? I mean,
it's
this
basically
idea
karma is
about this, that they don't think they're going to incur karma.
yeah, it's basically magnetism in it. It's what we put out there returns to us. So what they try and do is put it out there and try and have it avoid it returning to them. So
If you could
um,
explain that, I'm just going to nip and get a bit of water. Sorry,
yeah,
continue.
no problem. No
Okay.
worries. Yeah. So karma I see and karmic debt is basically magnetism. It's the frequency of our mind pushing thoughts out there, and then they just need to return to us. So that's what in the simplistic terms, what karma and magnetism is. But what they do then is they create a talisman, as I said. So they'll use a third party. They use a third instrument in the triad for their magic and offset through that. They'll also use false names to try and offset any consequences or magnetism back to them into a fictional character. So this is how
I mean,
they
I
put it.
understand that when people have spells or they conduct some kind of ritual against somebody, they get a medicine man or a black magician to do that.
Yeah,
So they pay or they give something to the black magician or the medicine man or whatever, and then they do the thing. So the karma is sort of blocked or diverted. I mean, does that actually work?
it only works, I think, if you can get the actual person to believe this happening. So, for example, if it's kind of, an old archaic one, a voodoo doll, and a copy of the voodoo doll will be sent to the person involved. The person will know what the voodoo doll is, and suddenly they become fearful and think they've been cursed. And as
But
soon
if
as
they
they,
don't know what it means, it doesn't mean anything to them.
if they don't know what it means, it may not be effective. in the first place, because they have to believe what that is for it to hurt them.
So the trick is to get the other person to believe that whatever is being done to them, such as these targeted individual people, the
That's right.
TI. So, and when you say I am a target individual, you're immediately saying target me because I'm a target,
That's right. And then you open the door to it and all
and
other
then
stuff.
you're actually they get you to spin on the hamster wheel, while they don't have to do anything then because you do it for them.
They want us in victim mode, and that's another reason why we have governments looking after us, because it's a nanny state. If we're in that kind of mode where we got governments looking after us, then we are vulnerable and victim-like and depending on them.
Which is the
So
whole point of the New World Order and the dependency on state, the dependency on the minimum wage, the dependency on these little drip fed bits of food that they give to us, and they don't want us
yeah,
to be independent.
no, exactly. So they want to keep us in that state, that victim state. That goes back even further as well. That goes back all the way to our birth certificates and how they monetize that and
What's
create
the
companies out of it.
significance of that birth certificate? I mean, what's a bit of paper?
Well,
What
that bit
what?
of paper ends up with a company number on it, and then we are tricked into owning a talisman, a magical talisman, which is a straw man.
Now,
Um,
what is this straw man? Is this like a
it's a
well? It's
fictional
it's like a
character.
voodoo doll.
Yeah, it is exactly that. It's a fictional character, so they can do anything through that to that fictional character, and nothing will happen to them because they're not doing it to the person or the soul directly. But because we've been tricked into owning this straw man, this fictional character, then we take responsibility for it. Then we suffer the consequences because we are agreeing and consenting to acquiescence
Is
to
that
that.
why when you're in court, people say I'm a living man or something?
Yeah, because they can't, they literally cannot deal with a living soul, human being and soul. They can't. No, a company cannot um, do business with a soul, a human being. They can only do business with another company. So that's why they have created companies out of us, tricked us to own it, and then they monetize it and they sell that data then behind the scenes for lots of money.
What's the actual? Where does this money come from in terms of just because they know that you'll watch TV on a Tuesday and watch a particular program or
So
you have habits which do this or that. I mean, what does that knowing that, or you eat sausages on Wednesdays? Apart from meaning that they'll maybe sell you more sausages on a Wednesday, why does this data? What's it so valuable? What's actually the value
it
in it?
it's well, before we were invaded or a civilization before this time, we were entrusted with trust accounts. In our trust accounts are large amounts of money for us, which some people are accessing now through doing it properly. So what they are doing when we're born, we got a trust account that's maybe worth 20 million. And then they create the company and they take over the trust account. They become more or less the caretaker of our trusts. Without us knowing then, they keep charging the trust account and taking the money out for themselves. So it's all part
And
of,
that was about the birth certificate.
yeah, this is far back as that. That's where all this stuff starts. That's where
And there are some
all
people who've been able to get the birth certificate to get that money
like
that's theirs, and they actually get paid. They actually get the money,
they do, yeah.
but
That's
they've got to
exactly.
jump through all these hoops or whatever.
They take back they get their live birthing record, and then that's a transcript that was made of our birth, and that's the actual true birthing record, not certificate, as a record.
So, what
Um,
exactly does that comprise of? Is somebody sitting there writing down a note saying this person was born at this time and all that?
yeah, they literally writing down, step by step, like the minutes, like a minutes of a meeting. They're literally writing that down, and that's our
So
that's
there's going to
proof.
be somebody in the hospital writing all this stuff down, and that goes into your well, where does it
Live
go after that?
live birthing record. It gets given to obviously the local authorities. They get it, and then they take ownership um, of it without us knowing. So we don't get disclosure on where that's gone, where that started, and then they create the fictional birth certificate on top and number it. So that's our slave number, basically.
Now, what's
That's
this
it.
fictional birth certificate? I mean,
Um,
if you went and got your birth certificate, you get a copy. You don't get the original one, or what? Is that right?
that's right, yeah. You'd have to request the original.
But that's in
And
a bank somewhere in New York.
probably it's probably in a pile of birth certificates and being sold around
Apparently,
and around and around.
that's
Yeah.
the key. And it's the New York Stock Exchange is where this happens.
It's the same, but that's how they do it, isn't it? Because it's the same with if you buy a new car, if you pay cash for a new car, the actual manufacturer's certificate gets sent to the DVLA, and you don't get that. So you become the registered keeper, and the DVLA have the ownership. So it's all the same, really. They are tricking us into owning everything. So I say when people think that we are moving into tyranny, we're coming out of it. Because we're realizing this stuff.
So
We're
when
moving out of
Klaus
it, and
Schwab's saying you will own nothing,
we already don't own anything. That's the thing. That's the trick. That's the inversion. That's the magic that they're playing all the time.
so why is it in his benefit to say that?
I think that's look at the impact that saying had. That those words, you will own nothing. Look what it done to people. Look at the energy that created. But people think, oh, he's going to take all our houses and he's going to do this. Well, that's a massive amount of energy. It's the simple magical hacking ever, because he's already got the minds of the people and he's already got them reacting and they're already releasing their energy to him. But in reality, they don't own anything anyway. So I think on that level, they know exactly the way things work. They know exactly how to manipulate people's minds and energy, and it's really simple for them because we are quite naive and innocent and ignorant to what they are doing.
Well,
But
this is
I
the
think,
purpose of this conversation: is to educate people so they're not ignorant. So where do we go from here in terms of getting out of this mess?
well, you can start. Well, there's so many places to start, really, isn't it? You can start at the very foundation of learning about, maritime law and common law.
But that's a heck of a lot of stuff to do.
It's very simple when you understand it. That statutes and acts are consent based again, and they are forms of magic against us. That's the most basic one. And looking into common law and stuff like that is, something for our souls and
I
for
mean,
our
there's been
being.
quite a few wise people in the love and light so-called truth movement, and been saying stuff, like don't pay your parking fine and stuff like that. And then all that happens, these people get into trouble and they end up going to jail and whatever it is. I mean, how can the average person do this?
It's knowing how to do it properly, and it's not something you can just do and say I'm not paying. And you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to know the right letters to send.
And if you make
You've got
one
to know the
mistake, you're
law.
screwed.
Yeah, but again, there's ways out of that because you can represent information.
Well, it's
Um,
interesting that an individual was set up by another broadcasting company, insofar of a certain case, he has he wasn't allowed to present his evidence. The court wouldn't allow him to defend himself by presenting the evidence that he said he has.
yeah,
And then he decided to appeal on that, and then they still said, no, you still can't do it. And then somebody said, if you resubmit, I don't want to send too
yeah.
many details here, But what's the purpose of resubmitting it? Does that invalidate the previous? What happens
Well,
there?
no, there must have been slight changes in what they were putting in because basically when you're submitting these paperworks, you're submitting proof that you are um, a living being. You're a man, and
Well, he's defending himself.
yeah, but the man is the most highest power in the court, which they've kind of inverted again. So again, it's proving you're the man and proving the contracts, making them do the contracts properly because nothing is set up properly. It's all it's a real mess if I'm being honest. The whole system.
Yeah.
So it's basically finding the truth in that and putting the correct paperwork. I recently done one myself now with the help of a friend. And that's to do with energy, but I won't get into too much detail there. I will name drop the companies, but
Yeah.
again,
Okay.
it's getting them to um, prove the contract, prove it was set up properly. Um, it's getting the director, making the director liable for it. And you see so many resignations with these companies now because the directors can't prove it and they don't want to become liable for what's happening. So they kind of resigning very quickly.
Yeah,
But
there's a few people in that sort of level seem to be resigning. Well,
yeah,
I mean, where does this take us?
um, well, that whole side of things, again, is very ritualized, again, is very magical, and again, is a massive piece of every contract and stuff that we're involved with is taking a piece of our energy. So energy on this realm is ours, it's free. We project the energy in this realm. They bottle it, loop it back to us, and sell it to us. And that's the
How do they
form.
sort of bottle it?
Well, they sell us gas and electric is our right to have without without them interloping onto the
Yeah.
supply. So if you ask them who the supplier is and where the gas and electric comes from, they can't tell you. They can't tell you who's supplying them. But what they've done is set companies up and they are uh, attaching onto supply and then charging for metering services. So they
Right.
again, it's another trickery. You're not paying for the supply of gas and electric, you're paying for metering when you look into the small print. So it's a way of getting the right information to do with that and um, putting the right paperwork in. And there's a lot of good people out there, people that know much more than me in that area. They really,
Well, getting back to these sort of rituals and things, and this alien encounter with these alien things, what's going on with all that? I mean, there's a guy called Chris Thomas we interviewed 20 years ago, and he was talking about at one point these people in these particular organizations, one day they go into a room and they are essentially that it's too late once you do that, and then they actually have their soul taken out, and then the reptilian is put into them, and the soul is swapped for one, it's not for want of a better word. There's some kind of ritual where literally their soul is taken out, dumped in a
mm,
reservoir of some kind, and I mean, what about that? The trouble is, once you do that, that's too late. It's too late. You can't get out of that.
no, there must have been some form of consent there through acquiescence or some agreement there, firstly, to do that. Because I don't think they can just rip souls from our bodies because of the attachments involved, and these bodies are made perfectly for the energy of our soul coming into them. So I think we pick these bodies before we come. The frequency, everything has to match. So I'm along the lines of thinking, yeah, that they can swap operating systems
Yeah.
within these bodies. They can swap it, but there needs to be some form of energy. And seeing as I feel that all energy, everything runs through us anyway, I think that we are the only commodity here. Then there has to be some sort of agreement. There has to be some sort of source energy in the bodies for a reptilian entity to take over a light body and take over a human body. There has to be a part of us still in there.
Yeah.
So maybe they've found a way of, which they probably have anyway. This tech is not new, is it? It's all old, and they keep regurgitating it. So it's a way of. I'll give you an example. Trance mediumship.
What's that exactly?
Well, that is if you go to a séance or you go to a trance mediumistic evening, the medium would be taken over by the spirit that's coming through. But the spirit can never inhabit the body, it can never take over the body. Only consent, it can control from the back. So it can project the voice from the back, it can use the voice box, but it can never actually take over that body because there's never been a consent there that they can inhabit that body, and they may not blend with that body anyway. It's very technical. So soul switching is a ritual that they have. I don't know a great deal about that.
Well, you have people going to India and places like that, and they seem to always have something that would swap over so they can then go to a higher level or whatever it is and body swap.
Yeah, I believe that happens, yeah, definitely, particularly with people in accidents and, going into hospital, coming out with totally different memories, different language even. There's definitely been a swap, but the blend has to be right. The soul coming in, taking over, has to, literally blend with every part of the frequency of that body. So this has
again,
to be
negotiated. Is it some kind of harmonic resonance and
yeah, it is
a joining together of some kind?
Yeah, it is. So it has to suit.
Well, is there anything you'd like to sort of finish this second part with? Any particular thing apart from your talk in June at the Basis 2024? You'll be speaking there. Do you want to give a little chat about that? Even if this is viewed after the event, you can always go and see the recordings on basistv.com.
Yeah, exactly. So my talk in your place in June, which I'm really excited about, is I'm attempting to back engineer the whole framework of it, everything from the overview and ritual and how it works, which way it extracts energy from us, to where we are going, to how our frequencies are raising, and how we are coming into our power.
It's really important.
Yeah,
we are empowered individuals.
We are. So we are coming more and more into our power. I think we will start seeing, I know it sounds far-fetched, but what we class as supernatural abilities, I see as natural soul abilities. And I think we are moving back into this phase. And this is what the elites don't like. So I'm going to talk about how they try and keep as many souls as they can in this period. And the souls that they do actually keep and the consciousness they do actually keep are the people with not enough knowledge of what's happening up there. So,
this is what this is about, to try and get this sort of information there so people get a better awareness of what's happening.
Yeah, and it's a stepping stone, and then they can keep going and finding out more for themselves how it works, learn a lot about themselves. A lot of them may be in victim mode at the moment, and I think that things are happening to them, but really things are happening for them, and it's a lifting of the veil.
What do you mean by for them rather than to them?
Yeah, so the stuff that we can deem as bad that's happening in the world now is also a pushing mechanism that's forcing people to look at what's happening, and some people will go within and find out exactly how it's affecting them, and it's raising their consciousness. So we are rebounding off the bad stuff is happening as well. And I think that if we haven't got that stuff happening, then and if we haven't come through like the COVID period, the bad period, then we were quite lethargic before it and passive and just going along with things. So I think it's important times, and I think more and more people will realize that and learn the truth and catch the train, as we said last time, Miles.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's sort of a nice little end point for this one.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is part 2.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that, and Mark. And it's been a really big day, and we look forward to seeing you at bases 15th to 16th of June in Bouverie Hall, and that's going to be a really definitive days, a couple of days. We're getting pretty close to a level of understanding of what's going on, and that's where we're not going to get disclosure, so-called disclosure, from where we think we might be getting it from.
I don't think. Yeah,
No,
I'm with you on
it's
that
not
one.
going to happen.
No, but I think your weekend up there will be special because I see the people that's talking, and I think it's gonna have a big hit on raising people's awareness and consciousness. It's definitely meant to be. So I'm looking forward to it, Miles.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you very much. I'm calling it basis definitive. We're definitive. We're not disclosure, but definitive.
Definitive.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'll do my little bit here to sort of see what's going on, and then I do this. I've got this little thing to sort of, so I do that, and then that. Oh, I've got to stop. Yeah, that. Cheerio.
The prize, Miles.
Bye bye.